Dark clouds obscured the moon, deepening the night into an impenetrable blackness, making it hard to see the road. Guided by the faint light of my phone's flashlight, I found my way to Cedric's house. Upon entering, I was met with an eerie sensation of being watched. Such a paradox, a doctor in a white coat, a healer and a savior. Starting from the entrance, my gaze fell upon shelves filled with glass jars. Within the transparent liquid were pairs of naked eyeballs, each black pupil staring unerringly towards the door, as if alerted by the sound of my entrance. I controlled my breathing, which grew heavier and harder to suppress. Cedric clearly had a penchant for collecting eyeballs. But why did he search for a feverish doll that day at the door? My head swam, feeling dizzy. Snapping back to reality, I rushed outside, still needing to visit Mr. Grayson's house. I had an intuition that once I completed my exploration, I would find a way to break through. But time was running out. The drug's effects wouldn't last much longer. This was my only chance. Failure meant facing everything I had just witnessed. Mr. Grayson's garden villa wasn't far from here, but it was built over water, accessible only by a narrow bridge with low railings. Thick fog obscured the path, narrowing my field of vision even more. I could only grope my way forward, every second intensifying my inner turmoil, time running out. Finally, at the end of the narrow bridge, I breathed a sigh of relief. Turning the key, the door opened, and I found myself face to face with the three men. Escape! I instinctively turned to run, but before my legs could move, a sharp pain shot through my neck. I don't know how long passed. When I opened my eyes, Sebastian entered, carrying two Lolita dresses, a smile brimming on his face. I picked these especially for you. What do you think? Aren't they glamorous? They had me tied to a chair, hands bound behind my back. I ignored him, pulling at my restraints. A mocking laugh echoed from a corner, as if ridiculing my vain hopes. Mr. Grayson sat there, organizing 9 glass jars in front of him. Stop struggling. Even if you get free, what chance do you have against the three of us? I was done for. A sense of powerlessness overwhelmed me, fear filling my eyes as I pondered the impending doom. Cedric scolded lightly. Enough. Why scare her? We agreed these eyes are mine. You've made her cry. They won't be as beautiful later. Mr. Grayson placed the jars on a shelf behind him. What's the rush? Trembling, I asked, aren't you guys in competition with each other? Cedric glanced at me, speaking with rare interest. Oh, you've caught on? But who told you we're in competition? I'm curious. How did you know I wanted your eyes? He moved closer, forcing me to look into his eyes. These eyes are so beautiful. I can't wait to add them to my collection. Shouldn't beautiful things be protected? I asked with tearful eyes, still clinging to a sliver of hope. Cedric laughed as if he heard a joke. You're too adorable. He pulled out a handkerchief, gently wiping the tears from my face. Don't worry, I'll take good care of these unique and beautiful eyes in a glass jar. Sebastian, losing patience, pushed Cedric aside, shielding me with his broad back. I felt a bit calmer, my heart faintly hoping for him. Cedric, didn't you forget? She's mine for the day. I froze in shock. Cedric tucked the handkerchief into his pocket, smiling. Fine, fob. When you're done playing dress up, I'll come back. Left alone in the room with Sebastian, he casually examined the two gorgeous Lolita dresses, glancing at my distraught form. Don't you like these dresses? I turned dumbly, facing him. Sebastian smiled. It's okay. If you don't like them, I'll find you better ones. One by one, try them on for me. He untied the ropes, thrusting the dresses into my arms, his face filled with anticipation. My face burned red, hands clenched tightly, a hoarse voice escaping my throat. Change here? Sebastian nodded happily, showing no intention of turning away. Bracing myself, I stripped off my clothes and pants. Thankfully, the undergarments I wore were relatively conservative, reducing the humiliation. Slipping into the blood-red dress, I shivered, waiting for Sebastian's next command. His eyes shone with admiration. Do you like it? I forced a smile. Yes, I feel like it's made for me. Sebastian took my hand, leading me out of the room. Good, let's stick with this one then. Honestly, I think you look beautiful in anything. My nervousness increased, palms sweating uncontrollably. Sebastian, holding my sweaty hand, seemed oblivious to it, excitedly leading me. How does it look? Beautiful, right? Eagerly, he sought to show off his masterpiece to Cedric and Mr. Grayson. Cedric stared intently at my eyes. It is beautiful. Mr. Grayson, however, had a dark, resentful gaze, sending shivers down my spine. Sebastian scratched my palm. Turning to Mr. Grayson, he asked, "Do you have nails and a hammer?" I suddenly recalled the dolls in Sebastian's wardrobe, their joints glinting with metal. He nailed their joints, so even after the bodies stiffened, they could still be manipulated. Sensing my fear, Sebastian looked back at me. Don't be scared. I'll be gentle, it won't hurt. To Mr. Grayson, he said, long nails would be best. The next moment, he gently asked me, is 1.5 inches okay? Cedric suddenly interrupted, clearly displeased. Sebastian, we agreed she's yours for today, but you can't go too far. Don't forget, the last girl was all yours. This time it's my turn with Mr. Grayson. If you damage her, I won't let it go. Sebastian scoffed, don't worry, I won't damage her eyes. Cedric kicked over a stool nearby, muttering under his breath, so annoying, I don't want to wait anymore. Leaving a message, I hope when I wake up, I can get what I want intact. He stormed out of the living room. Mr. Grayson glanced coolly at them, then swept his gaze over me from head to toe. Leave me her lips, tongue, ears, and one little finger. As for the rest, you know what to do. Sebastian hummed in agreement. Of course, I remember. Assured, Mr. Grayson tilted his head toward a cabinet. There are hammers and nails of various sizes there, and a nail gun. My scalp tingled with dread, my eyes filled with pleading as I gripped Sebastian's sleeve tightly, trying to stop him. Sebastian pried my fingers loose. Be good, I'll be back soon. I was shaking all over, feeling as if I were nailed to the spot, unable to move. I could only watch as Sebastian opened the cabinet and took out a nail gun, loading it with nails. Sebastian tilted his head slightly, winking at me. Before I could react, he pressed the nail gun against Mr. Grayson's temple, pulling the trigger several times in quick succession. Mr. Grayson collapsed to the ground, blood trickling down from his temple, his eyes staring lifelessly at me. Sebastian then smothered his nose and mouth, ensuring he made no sound till his death. After doing this, he stood up and walked towards me. I retreated step by step, but he just brushed past me and knocked on Cedric's door. Cedric yelled from inside, "What now?" Sebastian, lips slightly curled, reloaded the nail gun. "Nothing much. This woman couldn't handle it. I only nailed her a few times before she gave up. Better come out and take her eyes before they lose their vitality." Footsteps hurried to the door. Cedric, ecstatic, emerged with a shiny glass jar in hand. Sebastian lifted his arm, pressing the nail gun to Cedric's head. Cedric's expression changed drastically, and before he could even speak, several nails were shot into his scalp with loud bangs. His face was a picture of disbelief as he stiffly fell to the ground, gasping his last breaths. Sebastian, holding the gun, smiled as warmly as the first time I saw him, like a sunny golden retriever. I was petrified with fear. He extended a gentle hand towards me. "Now, it's just the two of us." My eyes were blindfolded, and my right hand fell into a warm palm. Sebastian chuckled softly, leading me slowly forward. The sound of flowing water and the breeze brushing my limbs and body made every little movement frighten me to the bone. After what felt like an eternity, he finally stopped, pressed my shoulders to make me sit, then leaned down to whisper, "Yvonne, wait for me. And whatever you do, don't take off the blindfold, or, well, you'll regret it." His footsteps faded away, and I mustered the courage to pull off the blindfold. My gaze suddenly met the dolls beside me. I was actually inside Sebastian's wardrobe. No wonder it was so cramped. Perhaps he was too confident, thinking I'd be too scared to do anything, so he didn't bind me. "Regret?" I snorted, standing up and crawling out of the wardrobe. I found a fire axe under the bed. The game was just beginning. The moment Sebastian opened the door, I swung the fire axe down towards him. He seemed to have anticipated it, stepping back quickly. Our eyes met, his face wearing a mocking smile. I smiled too. As the spray descended, Sebastian's eyes widened in disbelief, his face full of shock. As soon as I opened the wardrobe, I had noticed the assortment of tools for committing crimes in the corner, including various types of knockout drugs. I bent down, grabbing the hood of Sebastian's sweatshirt, dragging him into the bedroom like a dead dog. The bed first descended, then rose, transforming into an operating table in just a few minutes. When Sebastian woke up, I was wearing a white coat, squinting and smiling gently. "Did you sleep well?" Sebastian, spread-eagled and locked down, his wrists and ankles wrapped in 2 cm wide steel rings, struggled fiercely, the operating table creaking loudly. I laughed. "Stop struggling. Didn't you design this? Even if you shed your skin, you can't escape." He gave up struggling, his chest heaving dramatically. "What do you want to do?" Sunlight refracted dazzling colors through the liquid in the syringe. I pushed the plunger up, the liquid shooting out. Sebastian's expression changed slightly, and I said, "Anesthetic." "I didn't really want to use it." "What about you?" He pleaded, "Yvonne, can you let me go first? I know, you must share the same interests as me. How about this? We can do it together." "Together?" I raised an eyebrow. "How exactly?" "I don't have such interests." I leaned closer to his ear, teasingly whispering in a playful and mischievous tone, I came specifically for you three. Unfortunately, the other two were too lucky. They died too quickly. Sebastian froze. Who are you? I moved lightly, turning to pick up a shiny piece of wire. Don't worry, I've done my homework already. Threading the wire through the nostrils and deep into the brain, stirring the brain matter, it preserves the most vivid expressions. Your favorite, lifelike corpses, right? I won't disappoint you. Pure terror appeared on Sebastian's face. He shook his head wildly, his pleas for mercy incessant. Oh, right. My eyes brightened, remembering something crucial. Sebastian stopped his cries, gasping for breath, his eyes fixed on me. I opened the other side of the wardrobe, pointing to a row of exquisite and beautiful Lolita dresses. Junior, pick one. Sebastian's eyes were bloodshot, his voice hoarse as if a trapped animal gasping before its end. Seeing him like this, he was obviously not in the mood to choose. I picked up the wire again, slowly threading it into his nostril. This would take a lot of time. It might get a bit boring. Meanwhile, I decided to chat with him. 5 years ago. In a tube building, two sisters who depended on each other for survival lived. One day, the younger sister, who had autism, met 3 men. 3 men with the appearance of righteousness. The first man claimed to be a doll collector, luring naive girls with anime and using a warm and sunny facade to trap the girl at home to make her into a doll. The second man, inhumanly obsessed with women, he had a near-crazy love yet extreme hatred for them. He dismembered and butchered every beautiful girl he found, always preparing 9 glass jars for trophies. The third man, a well-mannered, life-saving doctor in public, but his room was filled with eyeballs. The reason? He lost his mother at a young age, and his first memory of her was her bright eyes. The younger sister met the first man, wearing the dress he picked for her, attending her first Comic-Con. There, she met many new friends, including the second man. The doll collector and the man with 9 jars collaborated. The moment the doll was made, the collector's desire reached its peak, satisfied with a sense of achievement. And the man with 9 jars had an even more secretive secret. Severe necrophilia. He didn't preserve the whole body, only keeping parts of his beloved girls. But with the doll collector around, all these were no longer problems. The younger sister felt something was off and secretly sought help from her sister. But her words were too vague, and her sister, busy with work, failed to understand the first cry for help. The frequent tenderness from the doll collector made the younger sister doubt her own suspicions. He said, "Maybe it's because of your autism." The younger sister turned to the third man, the eye-obsessed, a psychologist. The situation didn't improve. Her mental state deteriorated, yet she dared not tell her sister again. The 3 men, in cahoots, threatened her from time to time, saying they would harm her sister if she didn't obey. By the time her sister arrived, the younger one was already a vegetable. A moment later, and she would have been a lifelike doll. I smiled wryly, looking at Sebastian, whose eyes were rolling back. Knowing he couldn't respond, I still kept talking, saying what I wanted to say. I am that incompetent sister. And also, a researcher at the Supernatural Biological Engineering Lab. The 3 men in the story, I think you should know who they are by now. After rescuing my sister back then, I crazily sought revenge against those 3 men. When my superiors found out, they stopped me, earnestly persuading me to use the law against them. But I felt such punishment was too light. In the lab, I independently developed the Otome game. My leaders didn't stop me, just added some symbolic restrictions, letting me take my revenge in the game. I visited them in prison, extracting brainwaves, implanting them into the gaming pods. The Otome game player turned into a doll was designed based on my sister, the first trigger point for memory in the game. Then, I needed to explore their 3 houses to trigger all memories. The messy dolls were already complete. I shook my head, realizing that no matter how many times I did this, I lacked their twisted talent. Exiting the gaming pod, I opened my eyes in the real world. I went next door to visit my sister. Whenever I entered the game, I would put a helmet on her, sharing the stream of consciousness within the game world with her. After multiple retaliations in the game, my sister's condition gradually improved. Probably, she would wake up soon. Cedric and Mr. Grayson. The first time these 2 men saw me in prison, they almost went mad with fear, running wildly around, their eyes filled with terror. After medical evaluation, they were declared insane. I had them committed to a psychiatric hospital. I heard they still had subconscious behaviors of abusing small animals. That's fine. I had previously developed a consciousness-raising game for the psychiatric hospital. It helped to stimulate a love for life and a protective quality for the weak in patients. The results were quite good. Soon, the hospital director sent me a message. Cedric and Mr. Grayson were caught bullying small animals and got beaten up by other patients each time. A week later, my sister finally woke up. It was a medical miracle. With the support of my leaders and sister, I made modifications to the Otome game. I added more levels, circulating it among vegetative patients, and the feedback was good. As for Sebastian, perhaps his consciousness collapsed in the game. He never woke up again. Living on in a vegetative state, perhaps, was another form of a doll.
Thank you for taking the time to watch. If this video connected with you, I'd be grateful for your follow. Your likes and comments are not just numbers to me, they're a source of inspiration and encouragement. Your support truly means the world.